The warning klaxons were not a rhythm, they were a scream. Jaxon Cole slammed the yoke of the rusty mule hard to starboard, the structural integrity fields groaning under the gravitational shear. Outside the cockpit canopy, the void was alive with the burning contrails of 1,000 distinct trajectories, all converging on the monolithic silhouette of the Sun Eater. This was the Zorgon flagship, a planet killer that the Galactic Council had deemed invincible. Yet here they were, a swarm of gnats annoying a god. "Vara, talk to me," Jaxon shouted, his voice vibrating in his chest as the inertial dampeners struggled to keep up with his evasive maneuvers. "I am at the breach point," came the voice over the comms, guttural, composed, and terrifyingly calm amidst the chaos. "Shields are down. The path is clear. Do not die, pilot." "I'm trying not to." Jaxon gritted his teeth, spinning the heavy freighter through a gap in the flak screen that shouldn't have been possible. This was the pinnacle of HFY logic, doing the impossible out of sheer stubbornness. "Just remember, you promised me we'd survive this." "No," Vera corrected, the sound of tearing metal audible in the background. "I promised I would protect you." "There is a difference." A lance of plasma scorched the hull, sending a temperature spike through the cabin that the memory of that hot, dry day on Outpost Omega vanished as a proximity alarm screamed, dragging Jaxon back to the suffocating reality of the cockpit. The rusty mule shuddered violently, a glancing blow from a turbolaser stripping the paint from the starboard wing. "Shields at critical," Jaxon yelled, his hands flying across the controls, sweat stinging his eyes. "Vera, I can't keep them busy forever." "The Sun Eater is charging its main cannon. Then give them a new target." Vera's voice crackled through the comms, breathless but triumphant. "The core is exposed. I am finishing the work." Jaxon pulled the freighter into a vertical climb, the G-force pressing him into the seat until his vision blurred. He was just one man in a tin can fighting a force the Galactic Council had fled from in terror. But he wasn't alone. Suddenly, the radar screen blossomed with 100 green dots. "This is Hauler Red Horizon." A voice crackled over the open channel. "We heard the mule was dancing with the devil. Thought you could use a partner." "This is Starhopper 7, another voice chimed in. "Standing by to engage." Jaxon watched in disbelief as a ragtag armada of mining barges, junkers, and retrofitted shuttles dropped out of warp. They were disparate, weak vessels individually, but together they formed a wall of defiance. It was the ultimate testament to human ingenuity, weaponizing everything, including garbage trucks when the chips were down. "All units," Jaxon commanded, his voice steadying. "Target the sensor arrays. Blind them." As the civilian fleet unleashed a storm of kinetic rounds and mining lasers, drawing the behemoth's fire, Jaxon whispered the truth that had brought them all here. "When the galaxy turns away, humanity holds the line." On the hull of the Sun Eater, a series of internal explosions rippled outward, venting atmosphere and flame. The massive cannon powered down with a dying groan. "It is done," Vera said. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was electric. The Zorgon battleship, crippled from the inside by a single death worlder and harassed from the outside by a swarm of angry apes, began to drift listlessly. Jaxon landed the mule in the docking bay of the now surrendered battleship an hour later. He ran down the ramp, his heart hammering against his ribs, not from the battle, but from the terrifying delay in Vera's response. She emerged from the smoke of the airlock, her armor scorched, blue blood not hers splattered across her chest plate. She looked terrifying. She looked beautiful. Jaxon didn't think. He surged forward, colliding with her. For a moment he thought she might crush him. She certainly could, but her massive arms wrapped around him with a surprising, desperate tenderness. The metal of her gauntlets was hot against his back, a physical reminder of the fire she had walked through to get back to him. "You're alive," Jaxon breathed, pulling back just enough to scan her for injuries. "I told you," Vera rumbled, leaning her forehead against his, the size difference comical, yet irrelevant. "I am your shield. A shield does not break easily." She looked over his shoulder at the fleet of human ships docking, beginning the work of rescuing the prisoners trapped in the battleship's brig. "You summoned a pack," Vera noted, impressed. I did not know your species possessed such coordination. We're stubborn, Jaxon grinned, the adrenaline fading into a warm, magnetic pull between them. And we don't leave family behind. The Rusty Mule didn't just carry cargo after that day. It became a legend, a sanctuary where the lost and the broken found a home, protected by the pilot who offered a bowl of stew and the warrior who started a war to repay him. They proved that while the universe is vast and cold, the heat of a single connection is enough to burn down empires. Instantly soaked Jaxon's flight suit. They were one cargo hauler and one border against an empire. It felt like the climax of a classic science fiction story, but the fear was metallic and real on his tongue. One bowl of stew started a war. 72 hours earlier, the galaxy had been a quieter, colder place. Jaxon had been grounded at Outpost Omega, a sprawling trade hub of sun-baked Brastel and neon. The heat was oppressive, shimmering off the landing pads where the Rusty Mule sat cooling its engines. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking for a replacement coil and a decent meal. He sat on a crate near the loading ramp, a thermos of his grandmother's beef stew steaming in the dry air. It was a small comfort, a piece of humanity he carried across the stars. That was when he saw the eyes large, luminous, and desperate peeking from behind a stack of shipping containers. The child was scrawny, a species Jaxon didn't recognize, with skin like polished obsidian and trembling claws. The locals ignored the street rats, but the Terran spirit didn't operate on indifference. Hey, Jaxon said softly, unscrewing the lid. The aroma of savory broth drifted across the gap. You look like you could use this more than me. He didn't toss it like scraps to a dog. He walked over and knelt, placing the thermos in the child's hands. Kindness is the heaviest cargo, because it requires you to stop and carry the weight of another's survival. The child drank voraciously. The simple calories a lifeline. Jaxon smiled, witnessing the resilience of life when the sunlight was suddenly blotted out. A shadow fell over the massive and imposing. Jaxon looked up, and up, past scarred armor and muscle dense enough to stop small arms fire. Standing there was a creature that xenobiologists politely termed a death worlder, but the spacers in the dive bars just called them Space Orcs. She was 7 feet of coiled violence, an apex predator in every sense of the word. Vera looked at her child wiping stew from his chin. She looked at the empty thermos. Then she looked at Jaxon. Her hand rested on the hilt of a vibration blade that hummed with lethal potential. The hand that feeds can also break bones, Vara rumbled, her voice like grinding stones. Why do you feed my kin, human? What payment do you seek? Jaxon stood up, dusting off his knees, meeting her gaze without flinching. This was human ingenuity at its finest, facing overwhelming force with confusing politeness. Kid was hungry, no payment, it's just stew. Vera tilted her head, analyzing him. She was accustomed to cruelty, to the transactional nature of the Rim worlds. This act of altruism confused her tactical sensors. She saw no trap, only a bizarre, soft species that shared resources without strategic gain. You have no shields on your vessel, she observed, glancing at the mule. Your hull is pitted. You are vulnerable. I get by, Jaxon shrugged. Not anymore. Vera stepped closer, the air between them charged with a sudden, intense gravity. You preserved my bloodline. By the code of the Iron Nebula, I am bound to you. I will be your shield until the debt is paid. I just wanted to share lunch. And now you have a war-sworn guardian, Vera stated, turning to the ship. Prepare for departure. We are leaving.